Welcome to Craft Chat Chronicles, the go-to podcast for tips on crafting best-selling fiction. Here at Craft Chat Chronicles, we bring you expert interviews, insights, and tips on writing, publishing, and marketing. Join the conversation and embark on a new chapter in your writing journey. For workshops, show notes, and more information, visit jd.myall.com. That's jd.myall.com.
In this episode of Craft Chat Chronicles, we are going on a writer's journey with good friends and good writers. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome. Today I'm going to be going on a lovely journey with my dear, sweet, intelligent, kind, wonderful, charming friend, J. Marie. Say hey, Jay.
Hey.
Before we get started with today's topic, just wanted to check in with you and see what's new. So what have you been working on this week? What's been going on with you this week, Jay?
Yeah, so I'm continuing to work on the story that you and I have been talking about. So it's a script that I had written a few years ago that I'm reworking. And then an extra special detail about that I won't share now, but maybe later, about something else I'm doing with it. But I'm working on this story. And I've been using this craft book called Story Genius, which is a book that we used in our MFA program. And it's really helping me, I don't know, clarify the third rail type things, the internal struggles that are going on with my protagonist, and to connect to the bigger story. And I had to really fruitful writing sessions this week, which helped me connect some of the like historical social things in the US that are part of the bigger story to her internal struggles, and it made me very happy. And it's going to make a lot of the other things that happen more exciting and clear, and what I really wanted from it to begin with. So it's been a very good writing week. Not stressful, like fun. It felt fun, like it should be.
That's
How about you?
I've had a pretty good week, writing wise. I've been doing more revision than anything, and finally started the first chapter of book 2 in the Heart's Gambit series. I was struggling to tear myself away from something else I was working on because I was loving it, but now I'm starting to get into the groove and getting into the love with book 2 in the Heart's Gambit series. And but I also wanted to clear something up. I spoke in a couple episodes about how I did this Black History Month display, and I displayed these different, books by Black authors and things like that. And then I had the covers of some of them laminated and hung up as well. And The Hate You Give was taken off of the display, and the cover picture was taken down. And this was like around the time we're at the job, we were being talked to about what's the process if someone challenges a book, and how like different claim changes in the social and political climate might affect us job wise. Like with the Department of Education, and libraries in a lot of places are through the Department of Education and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So with all this stuff in mind, and them talking about how people, try to narrow politically and in courts, the scope of what goes on our shelves, and how we're pushing back against that constantly. When I saw that, I thought that it was intentional, because that book deals with police brutality. So then I was feeling like I was censored, and I was all in my feels for a couple days. Actually, I didn't say anything, of course, because but I was like silently stewing in my feels, because it was that particular book, and then it was replaced by a fantasy book, and the picture was down. And if the picture had alone been down, then I would have thought, well, maybe the picture fell. But when the picture was down and the book was gone, and then it was replaced by a fantasy, I was like, what the hell? And I was very surprised, because, like I said, like I told you before, most of the people I work with are allies, and and supporters of free speech and stuff like that, and the right to read. So I was very surprised by it. And then I discovered it wasn't what I thought at all, because employees come in one door, the back door, and the public comes in the front. And basically, someone had done a display where they were talking about like novels that the staff love and staff picks, and they took that one off of my Black History Month and put it on that display. by the front door and basically made it my pick. Because if it came off my display, so they knew it was a book I was, fond of or whatever.
Yeah.
So then it was like this whole time I'm silently stewing. And then by the front door, which is the door that staff doesn't use, which is the first thing everyone would see when they came in, they had it there. So then I felt better and relieved by that because, I wasn't being censored. I'd been stewing for nothing. Like I said, with all the verbiage that had been going on at work and them trying to prepare us for whatever negativities may come, that was what the first thing that came in my head. So I'm happy to report that in this case, that wasn't the case.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's really great. But it's understandable why you might think that way. 'Cause especially, it's not that they just even like took it down and put it somewhere else. It got replaced. Where
Right.
like I would think if they were just going to take it, they were just going to take it and put it wherever they're going to put it, and maybe that would be missing from the display, and then you might be like, oh, well, what happened to something? And the fact that no one said, oh, well, we're doing this, so it's going to be up here. So I mean, it's understandable, but it's good that you're able to, clear it up and all is well.
Oh, it's definitely well.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about like Southern Gothic horrors and vampires, and specifically Black vampires as well. I say as well because we can talk about all the vampires and that stuff too, but the shows that we chose, not the Vampire Diaries, they don't really have any strong Black vampire representation, but they do have Bonnie Bennett, Bonnie Bennett, who was the Black Witch on that show. And then we also chose True Blood and the remake of Interview with a Vampire to be our topics of the day. We're going to be talking about Southern Gothic and vampires, and we're going to be exploring it from a writing and craft perspective. And time evolves and consciousness evolves, and I'm not going to pretend like I didn't love all of these shows at the time that they were
At
out.
the time.
Yeah, but when you look back on things with a modern lens, sometimes it changes your perspective on things. Um, so that's what we're trying to do today. So let me start with the Vampire Diaries. And first of all, shout out to Kat Graham, who killed it as Bonnie Bennett, and she was one of the most redeeming things about that character because the writing they could have done way better by Bonnie. But yeah, Kat Graham was fabulous as an actress. The problem I had with looking back on the show now with a modern perspective, and mind you, like I said, when it came out, I loved it. I didn't see this stuff, but looking back now, all these years later, more mature perspective on the things. The problem I see with the way they wrote the character was they made her the Black best friend trope. She didn't have a lot of, especially in the earlier season. I think it was like season 6 when they started giving her a little more agency and more story. But she didn't really have like backstory and stuff. And it was like her whole life was to help magically and die repeatedly for her white castmates. You know what I mean? And these vampires who, if you watch the show, predominantly only came to her when they really like needed something. It was always, can you do this? Can you do this? One time Damon is like, will you risk everything for Elena? Would you even die for her or something like that? I'm paraphrasing. And it was like,
He said yes.
exactly. And at first it's
Yeah.
like, okay, save the cat. We're sacrificing for your other castmates to make you a likable character. But then it just went on and on so much to where it was like, is she suicidal? Does she have a death wish? They're not even real friends to ask her to die repeatedly for it. I mean, like we're friends. I wouldn't come to you and say repeatedly, put your life on the line. You know what I'm
And
saying?
I wouldn't offer, to be
Exactly. And the worst of it, there was a couple worst of it, but like when she was in the prison world and life just went on, like she wasn't gone. And then um, when and they treated her like she wasn't as desirable or attractive as the other cast members, which is crazy because Cat Graham is drop dead
yeah,
gorgeous.
she's gorgeous. Yeah.
But like they didn't give her a love interest forever. The first guy that she really showed interest in was basically like, you're desperate. You know what I mean? It's an actual conversation. He was basically a villain, and he was like, well, you're so. You made this easy, you know? And then when they had her with Jeremy, Elena's brother, that was a significant relationship, it felt like. At first I thought they were kind of mismatched, but I warmed to it. But then he cheated on her with his dead ex-girlfriend after she had died to save him. So like,
Wait,
so
who died to save him?
um
Bonnie did, or the
Bonnie
ex-girlfriend?
again
Oh,
sacrificed
okay.
her life so that Jeremy could live, right?
Oh boy.
He and he cheats on her with she's the only character in the whole series that got cheated on, the whole only main character in a show all about romance and vampires. They never gave her a significant romance. And then when she finally gets Enzo, who's supposed to be like the love of her life guy, they kill him too. Because they killed off a lot of her romance, her love interest too, but they kill him too. But then she was his third pick. He liked Caroline before
Mm.
that. He had a thing for Damon's mom. Like she was the third pick. And even he made a comment one time to her early on before they got together where he was like, "You're acting like the kind of person who's never been fought for." And then it was like, wow, screw you, writers. Like, y'all just keep
Wow.
repeatedly trying to brainwash us into thinking that this girl is like unattractive and undesirable. And have you seen her? Like, you know what I mean? And then they would have these events and things where the other girls got to be all glam and in these, like, like elegant, like dances and shit. So you'd see Elena
Like
in
the
ball
balls.
gowns and the hair,
Yeah.
but you didn't really see Kat featured in those ways and in those lights most of the time. And then on top of that, like to make it more sinister, some of these parties were like celebrating the founders and celebrating the town. And we're talking about Virginia and pre-slavery time. So we have like a Gone with the Wind themed party. And
Mm.
it was like the glorification of the period of slavery. And when you couple that with the fact that their only black main character keeps killing herself to save the white people, you know what I mean? In a show that's glorifying slavery, it's like all these glaring missteps and missed opportunities. And it's a shame because Bonnie Bennett was a badass witch and she deserved so much better writing. She deserved deeper, more meaningful relationship. You didn't even see her. She lived with her dad. You didn't even see him for seasons, right? Or her house, like for his multiple seasons. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just like so lacking. And I felt like Bonnie crawled so Tara could walk because Tara did have more agency than Bonnie and she came with her own backstory. Tara in True Blood, excuse me.
That's what I'm saying. You mean in True Blood? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but she came with her own backstory. She had like her own history and stuff. They did get into some angry black woman tropes, but
Oh yes.
Tara was still engaging and likable and she came and they still gave her the same thing where she wasn't considered the desirable. She was always pining for Suki's brother, but he was screwing
Mhm.
everything else. You know what I
I mean,
mean?
he was
Constantly.
not to be desired anyway. She
No, but I'm
deserved
just
better
saying
than him
in
anyway.
general. And another thing, another gorgeous actress. So it was
Yes.
like, do you people have eyes? What a missed opportunity. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on those two? And then I feel like, so if Bonnie crawled so Tara could walk, because Tara was a little better, but it was still flawed in some ways. Then Tara walked so that Louis could run because
Yeah.
it's a more modern show, and so it has a lot less of that.
But he's
Oh, go
also a
ahead.
man, so there's
Yes,
that
that's
to
true.
figure in as well.
That's true.
So wait, let me back up a little bit because the Vampire Diaries was the one show of the three that I never really watched, and to be
Mhm,
honest, I didn't know there was a black character on it. I just thought it
mhm,
was because in the promotions I saw, okay, we have these two vampires and then Nina Deprov's character, the main
mhm.
girl there. But then when you were talking about it, so I did take a look at some of the episodes, and I was like, this is why one of the reasons I stopped watching CW stuff. Um,
Mhm.
because yeah, there's always the black characters are usually story devices instead of full well-rounded characters like you were talking about. They're there to be supplements to whatever the other characters' journeys are and not have any real journeys of their own. Um, I mean, it seems like they later on they tried to do some stuff with Bonnie's character, but at that point it's like, was anybody even really watching the show? Like in season 7 or whatever that was. Um, so, but again, this was, I don't know, when did that premiere? Early 2000s.
Yeah.
Um,
But let me
and
add
you were
one thing
right.
to what you just said real quick.
Sure.
even when they added on more things to Bonnie's character, it was shady as fuck, though. Excuse my language, because they had her life linked to Elena in the Sleeping Beauty slough. So Elena, the main character for 6 seasons, like goes into this coma, and Bonnie's only alive because Elena's in a coma. But that was because Nina left the show.
That's what I was going to ask. Nina left the show, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But in doing that, then they turn the fandom against Bonnie, because then it's like, well, Nina's gone because you're alive. So, so people are like rooting for her death in a certain community, because there was that community who wanted Elena with Damon. And then more sinister is if you actually read the books. In the books, Bonnie ends up with Damon.
Hmm.
Bonnie has a whole book that she narrates in the book series. So she was a much more prominent, did
Black.
everything they could to keep her from being with Damon. And, I'm sorry, in the series, they made her black. And
Yeah.
like I said, did everything they could to keep her from Damon. And I'm like, I wonder if that would have been the case if she had been a white actress.
Probably not. And interestingly enough, I felt like was it Ian Somerhalder that was Damon?
Hmm.
He and Kat Graham in the few episodes that I saw had natural chemistry,
They did.
as as actors. So I was like, that would have been a really interesting storyline if they had gone that route. Um, but there was something about that time where they weren't really doing interracial relationships, particularly a black woman, white man. That I think Scandal in recent times really like pushed that forward. So like now if people see that like it's not a thing anymore. Um, but yeah, I don't understand why the writers' rooms are so scared about those types of things. Like I bet people would have wanted to see that because like from what I saw, those two had great chemistry just as actors. Like that storyline, I never read the book, but that storyline I feel like would have been incredibly interesting than what was happening.
What
Just
was
from the
happening
little
so
that I saw. Yeah.
true. And what was happening felt unrealistic to me, because like Kat Graham and Ian are trapped in a prison world for a long time, just the two of them. And they're
Nothing
supposedly
happened.
best friends on the show, but
Hmm.
you got a hot best friend. You know what I mean? You're trapped alone with him forever. No other man, no other woman on the face of the planet, and nothing happened. Like it wasn't giving a lot of realism.
Yeah, that's not realistic at all. Especially like they're both hot. Like
Yeah, that's what
what
I'm
are we
saying.
doing?
There's no realism there. And they're
Um,
best friends, so the bond has already started at that point. You know what I mean? And I don't know. So it was like to me, it felt like they were actively avoiding giving her that. And then after, like, when I say it was to the point where it was like almost suicidal and ridiculous, the amount of time she died. Her grandmother died in a helping her help Elena. Her father was
mm,
murdered in front of her. They never gave her the opportunity to grieve on screen for these things. She just go away for a couple episodes, come back. When she dies for Jeremy and Jeremy's alive, then it's like, well, enjoy your summer, Jeremy. Her ghost, like, well, enjoy your
oh,
summer, Jeremy, and don't tell anyone. So everybody's going along their merry little life. And what crappy friends are they that they think she's like away on vacation somewhere, but she's not posting or calling or reaching out, and you're not
like they don't
inquiring
even
about
know
her at
she's
all?
dead.
Yeah, like you don't know she's dead. What kind of crappy friends are you? And then when they finally discover she dies, when Caroline's mom dies, they have this elaborate, gorgeous funeral in this church, and it's beautiful. You have all the teary-eyed characters. When they discover Bonnie's dead, she gets a tree stump in the woods, and they're like standing around there talking about how she helped them. It was so ridiculous.
Shows you how
Oh my
much they
goodness.
cared about her. Yeah, it is incredibly ridiculous because like what are we doing? But just like you said, and that's another thing about the black trauma stuff that I really get tired of. It's just like we have whole other lives. Like everyone has their bits of trauma and things that happen. Like that's life. Can we get some joy? Like what does she enjoy? Let her have some joy. Let her have a real boyfriend who actually likes her and who's not going to ask her to die for him and will realize if she does die or whatever it is. Like you know what I mean? Like let her have some fun with Damon. Like what? Why? Um. Anyway.
Yeah, Caroline and all the other characters got so much better. Like they had multiple relationship partners and relationship arcs. And she didn't. And then even the way they created the character, like they would talk about her ancestor, who was Catherine, who is Elena's doppelgangers.
in the past. Yeah.
Catherine was the vampire that changed the boys into vampires, and she looks just like Elena. But they would always talk about Bonnie's ancestor being Catherine's handmaid. We're talking about pre-slavery time. She was her slave.
She was
Like,
asleep. Yeah.
what's with this handmaid and shit?
I remember seeing
We're
that, and I
talking
was like,
Virginia, really? Like, that's what you got.
well, were they
And
trying to do? Well, the Civil War was going on at that time. I can't remember the dates, or was it just ended?
um there were scenes where it was during the Civil War. So this was like the show was like would dive into pre-Civil War and then some during in their flashbacks.
Okay, because I remember like she's like riding in the carriage with her, and I was like, she would not be dressed like that riding in the carriage with her. If she's
So
her
yeah.
slave, like she's her slave. Like, let's be real. So that kind
Exactly.
of stuff too. Like, it's just like, oh, let's just glaze over this fact.
And it's like on one hand you're glorifying it with the Gone with the Wind parties and
Hmm.
all these flashbacks to the period where you're only showing what you think is the grandeur, but you're not showing the other side of the coin. But
Right.
then on the other hand, you're ignoring it because you're not calling her a slave, you're calling her a handmaiden. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
whatever. And then not addressing it in any way, shape, or form, but constantly murdering your only black lead to save the white people around her. And
Yeah.
I loved how True Blood in their episodes, early episodes, Tara got right to that when
Yeah.
Sookie
She
and her
just
vampire sitting there.
straight out. Did you
Yeah,
own
she
any
was like,
slaves?
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that would be what I would want to know if I, you know what I mean? Like you were around 100 years ago. What were you doing in those
Right, and
dark days?
everyone's acting like, oh, he seems like a very kind gentleman, da da da. Okay, but you were around during this time, so exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at least they took that on more head on and they addressed racism, the elephant in the room with that character. I liked that about Tara. I found Tara amusing.
One thing, I always had a love-hate relationship with the way they characterized Tara because I loved, okay, we've got this strong black woman character and she's funny and like great and strong, but at the same time, she's still this angry black woman trope
Mhm.
and the best friend to all the white people trope. Um, and in comparison to Lafayette, who's fun loving and everything, it's just like, well, why does she have to be again like the angry black woman? That always annoyed me with her character. But at the same time, like you said, she had backstory. We know about her family. She's an integral part of the weave of everything that's going on in the characters, especially like in the first several seasons. When she becomes a vampire, things get a little weird with her. Um, and I was very unhappy with how they killed her off. Particularly because she was a main integral character from the beginning. If you're going to kill a character like that, it needs to be epic. It needs to be something remarkable. And like she was killed off screen. And it's just like, wait, what?
Disrespectful.
It's very disrespectful. And I can't remember, but I feel like there was something going on with Rutina Wellesley in that show at the same time. I don't know if she wanted to be off the show or I can't fully remember, so don't quote me on that. So it felt like the people making the show did that on purpose as disrespect to her. And I literally stopped watching the show at that moment. And I still haven't watched that last season. Um, because I was so annoyed. And it's just like, really? This is what we're gonna do? Especially after like she was already um not in as many episodes. Like they started focusing so much on all these other random characters that they started bringing in towards like the second half of the show run. She wasn't around as much. Um and I kind of felt like her storylines weren't all that great. And then you kill her off screen random. Like it's just weird. It's something
That's
you don't
exactly
do. Yeah. Go
that's
ahead.
exactly how they did. And it was the opposite of the Vampire Diaries in that way, because with Bonnie, it was around season 6 that, when Elena left the show because the actress left, then they started,
Mhm.
oh, well, we've done everything for 6 years with the other people. Let's see what we can do with Bonnie, who we've ignored all this time. You know what I mean? Let's start giving her some storyline. Um, And yeah, with Tara, it was the other way. The opposite. She started off with more substance, and then, like you said, she kind of faded into the abyss, and they just killed her.
Yeah.
But like I said, I like the way they tackled racism. They didn't ignore it in that show. The Vampire Diaries ignored it so much that Damon was a Confederate vampire, so he was a Confederate
Right.
soldier, but racism was never addressed. The Founders Parade and other like dances and events they would do ignored Black oppression and slavery and shit like that. But oh, let's glorify it with these lovely dances. Makes me think of the dang plantation weddings that people do. It's like, did you
Yes.
not get what
I like
plantations were for us? It's like,
what
that's so
in the
distasteful to
world?
me.
I don't remember who it was. Was it Joe Scott or somebody who was just like, you don't see people getting married at Auschwitz. So like what are we
Exactly.
doing? Like I don't
Exactly.
understand why people don't hold that in a similar vein. Like it's just really wild.
Right. Like in Germany, you wouldn't see any statues to Hitler, but here we have statues to people who fought to
Yeah, and
enslave
they're
my
trying to
people.
put them back.
It's crazy. It's insane. It's
And
insane.
that's another reason what you were talking about earlier. I have a problem with people saying about we're looking at this with a modern lens. It's just like these issues were already here. People were just ignoring it. So it's not really
Hmm.
modern. It's just like we're just finally at some point being able to shine a light on it. Though that light might be turning off again soon, or now. But yeah,
Yeah, I think what both shows got wrong was that Tara and Bonnie were both treated as more disposable than their
yeah.
white counterparts.
And that's and as a writer, well, as a writer, but then also as a TV viewer, I almost go into shows or movies knowing. And that used to be the joke about horror movies too, where it's like the black
Hmm.
person always get killed first. Was just like, we're just there as props and not people. And I actually
Hmm.
saw that recently on a TV show where it's a show, I won't name the show, but in general, it has a diverse cast. But at the beginning of a recent season, I saw there was more diversity, and I was like, oh, I've never seen all this diversity in this particular setting in the previous seasons, only to kill those people off, and
Right.
have them be traitors. And it's just like, why? It's just like, oh, they're going to let's pretend we're upping the diversity, but now these people are disposable and they're quote bad. Um so it's just like you're just doing the same stuff.
And they don't even up the diversity correctly at that time. Hopefully we've evolved more now. But like for example, Bonnie's character was like if you ever listen to Donnell Clayton where she talks about painting the roses red. And
Okay.
that's what Bonnie's character felt like a picture of a rose painted red, not like an actual 3D rose. Because it was like you have
I see
this
what you mean.
black witch, but her magic systems were European based.
Mm-hmm.
And there's none of the cultural touchstones that make the fact that she's black relevant to the story at all, really. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
did make
I know.
her ancestor Catherine's handmaiden or whatever, but it's not like she's using any black magic systems. You're not seeing a lot of black culture like when she's in her house with what's being reflected or what they're eating or you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
no nuance to the character in that way.
I noticed that when there was a scene and someone was asking her if she had relatives in Salem. And she was like, I do. And I was like, why would her relatives be from Salem? Like when African American African history has its own like mystical backstories and like
Right.
so like why not use those systems instead of the European like to me like I didn't even like I said I didn't even fully watch that show but I caught that and it was just a short conversation and I was just like why the South has so much rich history and all of that, that's where her powers would come from, most likely. That's what makes more sense. Um, so yeah,
Exactly.
and you just do some Googling. It's not that hard to find.
Exactly. And I think a way for writers who are currently trying to write these scenes to avoid some of the pitfalls is like you said, a simple Google search, do some research, get some readers of color who can flag things for you because none of us are perfect. You know, we can all put
Yeah,
something in there that might accidentally offend somebody, but to try to
of course.
avoid it and, you know, give your characters nuance, make them whole people. And if your character is the bad guy, then have some representation of your story of a Black person or a person of color who is not the bad guy.
It's not.
That way
Yeah.
it doesn't look like the only image you're selling is the negative. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be a major character. It could be a smaller character, but just so there's representation of the positive aspect there too.
Exactly. And I also thought it was funny, but not in like a fully haha way. Well, one of the vampires, I think she was like newly turned, and the first two people she kills are Black people.
Mhm.
That
That
was
was
just like,
Caroline. And one of
and I was just like, nobody said
I'm
anything.
sorry, one of them was the dude that Bonnie liked. And then it's
Funny,
like
like, yeah.
we're supposed to pity her and not the poor Black dude she murdered at the carnival for nothing. He's just trying to exist.
Like,
She
what are we
eats
doing?
him and we're supposed to pity her. Crazy. And Caroline's character to me was so obnoxious in the beginning of the show. I don't know how she went from that to having such a major lead in the show, because she was probably one of my least favorites. I didn't hate her toward the end. They made her more well-rounded. She was
Mm.
definitely not my fave. Who was your fave from what you saw?
I mean, from what I saw, I didn't, like I said, didn't watch the whole show.
Hmm.
Um, and like from what I did see, I didn't see a lot of Bonnie. So other characters I saw, I don't even remember what his name. The nicer vampire was a
Oh,
good, was
Stefan,
an
the brother.
interesting character. Yeah. Um, but like I didn't really. I mean, honestly, it was definitely a show I wouldn't have. Well, I didn't watch it back in the day, and even now,
Hmm.
I got kind of annoyed with it.
Hmm.
And it's just like this is kind of boring. It's just like, oh, can we get? I'm done with these characters. Is there anybody else on this show? You know what I mean? Um, but at the same time, I can say it was written for the channel, like the channel that it was on.
Hmm.
It fit into that, so it was what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. And as a younger person who liked speculative fiction and liked fantasy, there wasn't a lot that included us at that time.
Right? Yeah.
So that's why even with Bonnie's flaws, it was like, yay, a Black witch. Right? You know what
Yeah.
I
And
mean?
did you? We didn't. Did you watch the new? Well, we were talking about vampires, but did you watch the newer version of Charmed at all?
I did. Yep. I watched it.
Just curious.
To me, it wasn't that much different than the original Charmed. I think they
Mhm.
stuck with the same format. They did infuse a little more culture in the characters and stuff like that. It was sad though that I didn't feel like the show was given as much of a chance,
Yeah, I
because some of
agree.
the
Yeah.
original actresses like spoke out against it and were,
Hmm.
not liking it. So it didn't get as much support. But to me, it felt very Charmed rebootish. It felt very much the same formula.
We haven't really talked about Louis. Oh yeah, that's what you just said. Yeah.
So what were your thoughts on Louis?
Um, I really it's interesting because Interview with a Vampire, the movie, was one of my favorite movies back then. I
Hmm.
thought it was done really well. I liked, in terms of vampires, Anne Rice's version of vampires because they were sexier and you know more palatable than like the back in the day the ugly one that turned into bats and that sort of thing. Um, but at that time, like I had no, it's rooted in like with the, like medieval European times or whatever. Um, but I really love this new version with Louis um in New Orleans. Like because I mean they were in New Orleans before anyway, but like to have him rooted there as a Black man, and the way we know the way they've written his backstory. um they don't shy away as to what life was like for Black people at that time. um, and how all of those experiences as a Black person, racism, all of that, um, I'm forgetting my words, but informs who he is as a person and then as a character. And I love that because or at least I understand why he's making certain choices or conflicted. Like he's so conflicted. Um, Leaving his family, and like they're all still in the same area, but like especially when he's a vampire now and he can't really be around them. but he still wants to be connected to them in some way. Just working with and fighting for the people in his community. When lots of things happen, he just felt like an actual person slash character and not just some plot device. And I really appreciate that with this series. And I have to say, I've only watched the first season. I haven't seen the other. Were there 3 seasons? Or I know there's at least 2. Um, but
And
yeah,
I
he's
agree.
much more rounded character. Yeah.
Definitely. I agree completely. He's a primary protagonist. His love life, his identity, everything's fully fleshed out and it's central to the plot. He's not just an off to the side person that comes in and plays magical Negro when they need someone to die to save everyone else. um, and I also like the way they're balanced with their portrayal. Whereas, like in the first season, if you remember, Louis was a pimp, and that's where
Hmm.
his wealth came from. But then you
Hmm.
have his family who's more spiritual and who's completely opposed to that lifestyle. So you're showing a balance. You're not depicting like all black men as pimps kind of thing. And I think with all characters, might not be as essential to do that because with white people, we have a million different views of whiteness that we've seen in stories in this
Hmm.
country. But with people of color, because there aren't as many depictions, and this might be the only depiction someone sees, I think it's important to have that balance to where if somebody's going to be staunchly negative, you should have at least some representative of this is not the whole. Because this
Right.
book you're putting in their hand might be their only view of blackness. We don't know. You know what I mean?
I hope
So I
not,
like that
but
they do that. Yeah, definitely. But
yeah.
I like that they do the balance in that show. I like that he has a love life and romantic pairings and just depth, really, you know?
Depth, yeah. Have you seen seasons past season 1?
Yes,
Does
I
that
have.
continue?
It does.
Okay.
It does. I
I was trying
love
to
the
get
way they handle the child vampire Claudia
yeah.
as well. Her death was sad though. That was heartbreaking.
Mm,
But I like the to me the thing about a good remake is you want to have the elements of the original so that we get the reminiscing, the fond memory, but you want to have
hmm.
enough of a twist to make it fresh and exciting and engaging on your own. And I feel like they give that.
Yeah. I can agree with that just even from what I saw. Um
Oh my gosh, and when I was complaining about Bonnie,
what?
something else I forgot. So, like I said, they kill her grand. Her father's murdered in front of her, and never is she allowed to really fully grieve on screen, right? Then they make her the anchor to the other side. So, for anybody to die, they have to literally pass through her, and she feels their death.
Oh God.
They just tormented this character forever. And then when she
What?
finally gets a love scene, when her and Jeremy are hooking up, that
Uh-huh.
can't even be I found love romantic moment because then somebody has to die and pass through her and it becomes a painful thing for her. So it
Oh
was
my
just like
God.
every way they could abuse this girl. Like, you
Let a black girl be happy. Jesus.
know what I mean? And with Louis, like I said, he has he has his ups, he has his down, he has his painful moments, but you never feel like he's not a fully fleshed out, realized character in those moments. He has
I
all of
wonder
the things that
okay.
we go ahead, I'm sorry.
I wonder if the same could still be said if the character was a black woman. Because for whatever reason, I feel like
Interesting.
the writing is quote difficult or whatever when it comes to black women, as if
Hmm.
we're some sort of like extra creature that's not human,
Hmm.
that's so hard to write about or write for. And it's
Hmm.
just like, why? It annoys me so much. And yet still not hiring the people who need to be in the writer's room to make sure that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Um,
That's true. That's a good point. That's definitely a good point.
and when they do, they're usually lower on the rung, so they can't really push forward any like real hard suggestions. They just have to do what they're told. So
Yeah. I like that Louis wasn't a paint the roses red character. He's a Creole black man, and then they made that central to the story. Like, there are scenes where he has more agency. I'm trying to think of the example. There was like one scene in particular where he's talking to this white man, and he's Creole, so maybe because he's not, I'm sensing, but I didn't just freshly rewatch this, so give me some grace if I'm wrong. But to me, it felt like there were some places that he can get into because he's Creole. So he had the lighter skin thing for him going on, but he's still black. So then
oh
there
yeah.
were limitations definitely to his freedom. And I remember there was one conversation with him and this man where the man was basically like pining for the days when he would not have to, when he would not be in here and he wouldn't have to engage with him kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't like shy away from the racism. I remember there was a scene where there's like a poker game in the first episode, and Louis is talking to him telepathically, and Louis is basically like, I hate the way they treat you and your
Mm.
people in this time and
You mean
stuff like that.
Lestat? Lestat
Lestat,
is
excuse me, I'm
yeah.
saying Lestat. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
saying Louis. Lestat is telepathically telling these things to Louis.
Yeah.
Lestat, by the way, was my favorite character in the books, hands
Yeah.
down. Damon was my favorite in the Vampire series after Bonnie.
You
I
like
always liked the
the
bad boy
baddies.
vamps. I don't know why.
Well,
But yeah, but they, like I said, they tackled that head on. I like that.
yeah, because it would be stupid for them not to. I mean, you can't set a story in this time frame in that location and not address it. And have this main character be like you. I mean, you can try, but it's gonna be stupid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why allow your creative project to look stupid when you just address it? Like, these things happened, they still are happening, to
Hmm.
which makes your story still relevant to what's going on now, like these times. So it's just like, let's stop pretending that these things didn't happen, aren't happening, because they did and they are. And
Exactly.
I personally think the creators and writers look smarter to just address it than to try and like shy and skirt away from it. That's stupid.
Very true. I liked too that they played with a different time period. For example, the Vampire Diaries didn't have to glorify the pre-slavery years. Um, in Interview with a Vampire, that's not the time they're in, you know?
Yeah.
So if they're vampires, they've lived over 100 years. You could have picked any time on that spectrum to start your story in. But, you chose the one you wanted to glorify. And that is what that is. What was also interesting, is the behind the scenes treatment of some of these actors. Like
Mm.
Ratuna, excuse me, Wesley,
Regina.
the Ratina, who played
Yeah.
Tara Thornton, got a lot of hate and racism from fans online. And she felt like there was a lack of protection for her character's legacy in some ways.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole thing online, with um, how Kat Graham was treated by the fandom and also by the showrunners. Like if you watch interviews, they would interrupt her a lot.
Mm.
And she would talk about wanting the relationship with her and Damon or wanting these things and that, kind of being shot down. And one time she joked that the writers wanted to kill her off, but that they might have been afraid of fan backlash because she was beloved. And again, she was the only Black lead on the show. And in some interviews, you see her being ignored by her castmates.
Wow.
So it was a lot of interesting stuff. And the Boy Meets World, the only Black girl on that show, if
Hmm.
you watch interviews of her talking about that time, she talks about the same thing, like experiencing some racism on the set and not feeling like she was being treated very well. So that has to be interesting, being the only on the set and experiencing those
I
things.
mean, it's crazy. Nicole Berry on Sleepy Hollow had, I mean, they treated her poorly as well. I mean, it's just like, this is your lead who's doing an awesome job. People are watching the show for these people, and you treat them
Hmm.
like shit. Like, I don't.
Exactly. And I guess the lesson and the takeaway is that Black viewers, like all viewers, we want well-rounded cast. We want to see ourselves reflected just like you do, but we want fully realized depictions. We don't want to just be the shallow best friend who has no life outside of saving you. We want to be able to be
Yeah,
real
like
people
your
in that
only
space. We
point
only
of
exist to
existing.
die for you, like
Yeah.
now.
And it's like, is that better than like I don't know, like I think about like some other groups who just aren't as represented much at all because we talk about, you know, the black characters, but whereas like the Asian vampires and the Latino vampires, Latino vampires,
Exactly.
all that, though they did have, but anyway, um, I was trying to think back on True Blood. But it's just like, what's worse? Maybe it's not even like to even have that conversation. Is it worse to be the sparable character that's there to die for everybody else, or is it better to not be there at all? I don't know.
Good point. That's why I said she crawled so Tara could walk and Tara walked so Louis could run to be a fully fleshed out character. Because you're right, the representation wasn't there. So at the time, if that was what you were interested in, you took it because that was what was available.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
man,
And all of this wasn't that long ago. This we're talking what, less than 20 years.
yeah.
Yeah, between
And I love
15
my
and
white
20.
friend, but I'm not going to die for y'all repeatedly. I'm sorry. No.
And
And
that's
you're not
another
my
thing
friend if you
too.
expect me
Like
to.
what I'm sorry, y'all, but like
It's so
if you
crazy, the
know
writing of that
any
show.
black people, not happening. Um See you next
Because in
lifetime.
reality, the sister would be the first one running in the horror movie. It'd be like, oh, hell no. What's
Hell
that?
no, exactly.
Michael Myers is coming. I'm out of here.
Goodbye. Ain't
I'm
no
not
walking through
looking.
the house like who's there? Like what
Yes.
are you talking
I'm not in
about?
the woods investigating shit. I'm out the door.
You know, funny story. I went to a haunted house with some of my friends like several years back. It's like you get to the end, and like like when you're waiting in line outside, you see people being chased out with chainsaws, with these
Mhm.
guys running after them with chainsaws. So you know that's the end at some point. So we're going through this haunted house with my friends, and we get to that point, and so there's like this doorway, and the guy with the chainsaw is standing there, and for whatever reason, he walks away. So I'm like, okay, here's the time to go. So like I walk through the door and all of a sudden I hear the chainsaw rev up again and I'm out. Like I don't look for my friends. I don't turn around. I'm just out. And like it was like a bit of a maze too, but some like I was running so fast and then I just like bolted out the door.
Fight or flight.
Meanwhile, my friends were like behind me and he ends up chasing them out. But they were like, we turned our heads, next thing we just see you gone. I was like, I don't need to hear or know anything else. Dude's got a chainsaw and it's on. Goodbye.
Years ago, I was probably in my late teens, early 20s. I was working at McDonald's as a cashier and the power went out. And my
Mm.
manager had the bright idea to lock the door. So if anybody took anything, like all the suspects would remain. I don't know what he was thinking, but he locks the door. The power's out. When the lights come back on, they can't find me. Why? My black ass was hiding in the closet. I was a cashier. I'm not gonna be standing in front of the money in the dark with strangers. I'm sorry, yo.
Exactly.
You're not hitting me to get to the drawer. Y'all don't pay me enough to die. I was in the closet.
Yeah.
Lights came back on there to find me with the brooms, hiding. No, 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 not me, not today.
I'm not trying to hear all that. Like, why would you lock the just let them leave? Like
Yes,
let them
that was
take whatever
insane.
shit.
I don't know why he even did that. What was he thinking? And then a similar thing happened one time at Home Depot when I used to work there when I was young. I worked many jobs when I was a young person. And Home Depot stayed open. The power was out and they had like the emergency backup, the dimmer lights.
Mm-hmm.
And they had us like walking people through the aisles with flashlights so they could continue shopping. And then
Oh my
the
god.
cashiers were supposed to literally with a calculator calculate what the totals were and just take cash only. It was crazy.
I had to do that. I worked at a movie theater in high school when the power went out and we had to do things with the calculator. Well, at first we didn't even have the calculators and it was just like do it in your head or whatever. I'm just like, what? Um, so it's like I'd be like, oh, it's about $20. But then you couldn't even open up the drawer. So,
I feel so sorry for the little Chick-fil-A kids. You see them standing outside.
oh, I know, right?
It can be cold or whatever. They have them standing outside. I'm like, oh, I remember being young, but there are other jobs, baby. You don't have to freeze.
Yeah. These days,
Find something indoors where you can hide in the closet.
hide in the closet. Well, at least if they're outside, they could run away.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Not wishing any doom on anyone, but yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy times.
So, any final words you want to leave people on this topic who are thinking about writing characters in the Black speculative space or in the
Or
speculative space,
just
including Black
any,
characters?
like, if you're writing characters that are outside of your cultural zone or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
do some research.
Yeah.
Talk to people. Even like I'm writing a story or there are some Asian characters and I know that I'm gonna reach out to some people, read this. Do I have the culture right? Especially the way people speak in culture. So if you have characters going home and talking to their families, they're most likely going to talk differently um, than they would in public spaces with other people. So just be conscious and aware of those things. So um, you're not offending people, but also just you have better characters and more well-rounded characters. Even if you're doing fantasy and creating other beings, they still need to be rounded um, beings. You know, but I just don't be lazy. Don't be lazy writers.
Very true, very true. Get, like she said, get people to read. You can even look into sensitivity reading. I've done sensitivity readings before. Reach out to me, ask my rates. Other people do them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, reach out to sensitivity readers. Sensitivity reading gets a bad rap a lot of times. People want to look at it as censorship, but
Not
really,
at all.
it can help enrich your story because it doesn't have to all be this is wrong, this is bad. Sometimes it's just helping improve it. Like, it might be a holiday meal and you're serving the wrong thing. You know what I mean? They can
Exactly.
they can point out the cultural nuances and touchstones that make the characters feel well-rounded and not like a rose painted red. And
Sweet potato pie, not pumpkin. Just
exactly. Exactly. And like,
yeah.
and to me, even if you're like someone who doesn't care about hurting people with harmful depictions, to me it just seems like a common sense thing to do to not want to offend people who might buy future books. You don't want to offend a whole audience of book
Right.
buyers. So you
You
might
want
want
people
to,
to buy your books, exactly.
yes. So you might want to have thoughtful representation, have representation, but just have it well rounded and thoughtful.
Yeah, and then nobody's telling you that you are racist or a bad person because they're trying to help you make it better. It's just
Exactly.
learning. It's just you have to think of it as education, more education, and like we all need it. Because none of us are
Mhm.
all knowing about every culture and every type of person and religion and everything that's out there. So it's you want to do that. It's fine. It's no
Yeah, we
one's
don't know
saying
what we
that
don't
you're
know.
bad. Yeah, exactly.
And I myself in the past, I told you this before. Remember, one of my very first things I wrote, I had a beta reader read it and they told me that it was like misogynistic. And as a woman, I was so embarrassed. But as a kid who
Yeah.
grew up on Purple Rain, the movie where they're throwing the lady in the dumpster and hip hop music, there probably was a lot of internalized
There's
misogyny
a
in
lot
there
of
that I had to
misogyny.
go through and learn. So while it was embarrassing as a woman, it was also a learning experience. And now it was like, okay, wow, let me look at this with a different lens and then realize where I can grow. You know what I mean? And do better. And
Exactly.
thank
And we
God
all
for
can do
that
that.
because I'd rather be embarrassed privately by you telling me that I can improve something than be caught with my pants down publicly out here looking crazy in the
You
world.
you have to stop the big scandals and people
Yes, I
taking your
don't.
book off the shelf
Yes,
ahead of time. Yeah.
exactly. I don't want to be embarrassed publicly. I don't want to be a hashtag. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, we all learn, we all grow. The shows were good for their time, and the more modern one obviously was more modern in its perspective. All right, we appreciate you guys for joining us as we took you on another writer's journey. Have a great day.
Happy writing.
Happy writing.
That wraps up today's Craft Chat Chronicles with J.D.Myall. Thanks for joining us. If you liked the episode, please comment, subscribe, and share. For show notes, writing workshops, and tips, head to jdmyall.com. That's jdmyall.com. While you're there, join JD's mailing list for updates, giveaways, and more.